According to Pew Research Center on April 9, 2019, about 6 in 10 Americans say race relations in the United States are bad. And of those, few of them see improvement. More than 8 in 10 Black adults say the legacy of slavery affects the position of Black people in America today, including 59% of those who say it affects it a great deal. Race is a hard-hitting topic in America. The depressing statistics I mentioned just before have resulted from how minorities have been treated in America ever since its founding. They've been disrespected, mocked for their features, and misrepresented in the media. Although racism isn't as direct as it was when Jim Crow laws were established in America, it's still prevalent in our society through racial injustice in the legal system. Through racial injustice and systemic racism in the legal system, race has and will always continue to be a devastating issue in our country unless we realize that everybody is equal and that we all bleed the same blood. Only then will race become less of a serious topic. In preparation for this speech, I've researched the topic of race in America on various websites, and I found accurate, up-to-date scholarly articles for this speech. We often hear stories on the news about how police officers have murdered African American victims. We see Black men receive longer, harsher sentences than white men for committing the same crime or even a less significant crime than white men. It's unfair. It's disturbing. We've witnessed or have even joined Black Lives Matter protests. Today, we will discuss how race continues to be an ongoing issue in America today through racial inequality in the justice system. And we will then propose an idea to solve this problem. To start, we will address racial inequality and systemic racism in the legal system. AmericanBarAssociation.com writes, according to evidence, the NCAA, which stands for National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, gathered, although Black people make up 13.4% of the American population, they make up 22% of fatal police shootings, 47% of wrongful conviction exonerations, and 35% of individuals executed by the death penalty. African Americans are victims of police brutality. We hear about these stories on the news all the time, and the most prevalent example of this would be the murder of George Floyd. So this occurrence occurred back in 2020, and this was when the 46-year-old died after a cop was kneeling on his neck for 8 minutes. Even after Floyd cried out, the cop remained on his neck and ended up murdering him brutally. Accused of buying cigarettes with the counterfeit $20 bill, Floyd received an inhumane punishment for such a minor crime. Thankfully, the officers have been charged for their crime. The man who murdered George Floyd received a second-degree murder charge and is facing 22 and a half years behind bars. The other officers who sat around and just let the officer kill Floyd have received second-degree murder charges, rightfully so. This instance, along with the death of Breonna Taylor, sparked anger-fueled Black Lives Matter protests back in 2020. Evidence showed that unarmed people of color have been killed and injured by the police more than any other group. Over 200 victims have been reported in the last 10 years, so we see this information is very recent. Many people's lives have been taken away while protesting and committing minor crimes that really shouldn't have resulted in any physical action. It's disturbing. People of color are more likely to be stopped and searched by the police than any other race. Research has shown that when Black people are stopped by the police, contraband is less likely to be found. So this is a useless practice. Racial bias from officers has played a significant factor in the incarceration of innocent Black people. On February 5th, 2021, InnocenceProject.org stated, racial bias is also seen in arrest quotas, the use of surveillance technologies like facial recognition software to identify subjects, predictive policing tools, and gang databases. Strong unconscious racial biases where Black people are associated with criminality persist. The first step towards a wrongful conviction is to lock in on a subject who confirms what you think Black people are known for, such as murder or stealing. Of course, those stereotypes, shift the way people think about other groups of people. And so when a cop just goes off of what they think Black people should be doing, then they hold their truths and they will arrest the Black person just based on what they believe, not based on fact, and not based on conducting an investigation on other potential criminals. So now that we've discussed inequality in the legal system, let's propose a possible solution to the problem. So the legal justice system needs to perform these 3 steps before sentencing a criminal to prevent imprisoning innocent people of color, because this practice has gone on far too long. Officers really need to determine if the subject is truly guilty of a crime, or if it's just their bias telling them that they should go after this African American. So, for example, if a policeman believes the stereotype that Black men are violent and dangerous, they are more likely to accuse the victim of a crime than simply hearing the victim out. So it's very unfair and disturbing. I'm just appalled. In May 2018, Vera.org explained the disproportionate racial impacts of certain laws and policies, as well as biased decision-making by the justice system actors, leads to higher rates of arrest and incarceration in low-income communities of color. There have been no reports of these arrests making our country safer, so it's just detrimental to our country. It's just very negative. There's really no reason that this practice should be implemented. There's no reason that this practice should be used by officers. Officers should conduct a thorough investigation on potential criminals before making the significant decision of sentencing them. And lastly, punishments for different crimes must be equal for everyone, regardless of their skin color. For example, the punishment for first-degree murder should automatically be life in prison, because that is an unforgivable crime. There's no way that they can get a lighter sentence, and every citizen deserves that punishment, regardless of their race. In conclusion, race is still an issue in America due to the unfair punishments people of color receive compared to their white counterparts. Race will continue to be a factor in America unless we fight against it. We now see the unfair practices conceived against people of color present in America today. To combat racism, we simply need to understand that those different from us are equal to us. We all bleed the same blood. We need to treat everyone with respect and kindness. We need to understand those different from us. We need to support movements such as Black Lives Matter and the Innocence Project that fight for Black equality and prevent false convictions. Change starts with you. Gandhi said it best when he remarked, "Be the change you want to see in the world." Thank you.